you cannot help anybody except by teaching. It is very good to help people. I mean, if people cannot help themselves, then sure, somebody should help them. If somebody is starving and has no way to get food, has no money to get food, has no work to get money and to get food and so on, then sure, it's very good to help them. And in that way, yes, you can say you can help them. If they are old or disabled and they cannot walk and they need to go somewhere, sure, it's very good to help them. But that's really like a very small thing. To really help anybody, you need to bring them away from their false ideas, from their false attachments, from the ego. So in that way, the only true karma yoga is teaching. The only way in which you can really help people is in teaching. So it's a little strange for me to start talking about teaching because I'm teaching. So I don't want you to think that I'm talking about myself, because I'm really not. But of course it's part of it, and I can only also dare a little bit talk from my own experience. But anyhow, whatever I'm saying about it is not like giving a message from me to you. As teaching is karma yoga, it should be without expectation. So as a teacher I can have no expectation, otherwise I create more problems. If I would have the expectation that after this class everybody becomes very enlightened, then I have a problem, because the chance that it happens is relatively slim. So I don't have this kind of expectation. But I can explain a little bit how the yogic tradition looks at teaching. And actually, so they have this name for it, which is called Sanatan Dharma. In a way, if you ask a little more traditional Hindu in India, "Oh, you are a Hindu?" You say, "No, I am not a Hindu. I am Sanatan Dharma." Sanatan Dharma is the old name for Hinduism. Hinduism was a name imposed from outside. The people living near the Indus River were called Hindus, and whatever they were doing was called Hinduism. But for the Hindus, this was never the case. This only came much later that they started to associate with this idea. For them, what they are doing, their culture, you could say, is Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan means three things. Sanatan means original. Sanatan means eternal. And Sanatan means universal. And Dharma in this case you can best translate as truth, but also you can translate it just as duty or path or way of life or something like that. Even you could translate it as yoga. So what is Sanatan Dharma? Sanatan is the original path. It is the original truth. It is the original way of life. But at the same time, it is also the eternal path, the eternal truth, the eternal way of life. And at the same time, it is also not just, like there, local, it is universal. It is a universal truth, a universal way of life, universal path, universal yoga. So this is a very interesting way to look at it, because it really means, when it comes to teaching, that obviously Sanatan Dharma always changes and always stays the same. It always stays the same because it's always about the same subject. It's about the truth, it's about the self, it's about cosmic consciousness, it's about the energy, and it's always about the same story. But it also always changes because it needs to adapt. It needs to adapt to the time, and it may need also to adapt to the place. Like in India, it's very easy to say, "Oh, if you're not getting up before sunrise, then what is the use to come to my class?" Then in India you can very easily say that, because in India getting up before sunrise is not very difficult. The sun always gets up like at a nice hour, and it's not difficult to get up before. So since it's important, like we discussed before in another class, You can say, yes, first try that and then come to the class. But to say that here is more difficult. Because here in summer, sun only rises 4:45. So I can't say this is easy. It's really very difficult to get up before sunrise every day of the year. And if I would be teaching like in Scandinavia, up north, then it's really useless. Because they even don't have sunrise for a couple of months every year. So it's like, it has to adapt. It has to adapt to the situation. Like Tibetans, generally regarded as very spiritual culture, they eat meat. For many Hindus of the plains of India, eating meat is like the worst thing. But on the heights of the Himalayas, where nothing much grows, meat from the yak and other animals is like the basic source of food. So, Sanatan Dharma has to adapt, has to change. And in that way, quite definitely, if we are learning things in India and bringing it here, we have to a little bit see. How does it work here? We have to experience it. And in that way, Sanatan Dharma always is reinvented. So a teacher, yes, definitely, he will, always create a little bit his own story. That is very important. But at the same time, also respecting the tradition, respecting the origin, respecting the original truth. Not trying to invent something completely new just by his imagination. Starting from what is already known and trying to add to it. Trying to make it even more big, more beautiful, more useful for people. Something which may have worked thousands of years ago may not work so well now. Like for example now with pollution, a lot of, I would say, technical kinds of yogas are not very advisable. Because these toxins that are in our body may be moving through special pranayams, for example, in places where they should not go. Or they should only be done after very extensive purification. So in that way, Sanatan Dharma always changes. And as I say, it is a teaching lineage, which means that there is a teacher and there is students. At some point, the students also become teachers. Definitely when the teacher leaves his body, and the students become the teachers. That's a very important moment, actually. But even apart from that, if you cannot share what you have learned, then also to you it will be entirely useless. The kind of knowledge that you get in these kind of classes is not information. Information you could receive and keep for yourself and not share with anybody. That's quite easily done. Like a recipe for making chai. You could, keep it for yourself. But true teaching is not about information. That's just a surface layer. True teaching is about the truth beyond. True teaching is about feeling. True teaching is about what you read in between the lines of what is being said. That kind of understanding, you have to live it. And if you live it, then you also have to share it. You cannot live it without sharing it, because to live it means that you touch it with your heart, that you get close to it really from your heart, that whatever I'm trying to say, you are sensing rather than understanding. You are feeling it to be true. And that way, you really have that understanding. If it is just words, if it's just ideas, if it's just intellectual, then whatever I'm saying, half an hour later, is gone. Maybe you write it down, and then 3 days later you look at it and you no longer understand what is there. Only if you can really sense it, then it will never leave you. Then you will always have it. But as I said, then you also have to share it. And actually sharing will also be part of the teaching, of your own teaching. Sharing will be the way in which you really come to understand whatever you have understood. Because as I said, this understanding is like in your heart, on a subconscious level. as long as you don't bring it out, it will not be present in your conscious mind. So you will not be able to use it so well. And by teaching, it will come out from your subconscious, it will become conscious. And that way also you yourself will benefit from it much more than if you would not teach about it. So you may not feel like, becoming a teacher, or you may not be able to imagine any time, you being a teacher. And I'm not saying everybody has to become a teacher in any kind of official sense, like I'm now sitting here. But whenever you are talking to people, your friends or family or whoever, if you have that understanding, then not sharing it will kill it. You have to share it. Otherwise it will die out. It will go away from you. You will lose it. So the sharing is essential, and so this sharing is also very much Sanatan Dharma. But of course also the practice is Sanatan Dharma. Not just the learning and the teaching. There is no true learning if there is no practice. That also must be clear. You can come to so many classes, if afterwards you don't use the information, you don't use the understanding, then it will not bring you very much. Only a little, mind game. Only through practice you could do something. So, how you share your understanding is personal. Whatever your choice you make there is your own choice. There are many options. The only thing I would say is, don't make a business out of it. I'm not saying you cannot ask any money for it. That's a different thing. But don't see it as a business. In India they have this word dakshina. Dakshina is usually some money or goods or something given to the teacher in return for the teaching. But this is actually only to assure the survival of the teacher and to assure the survival of the teaching. Both go together. This is not like a payment. And very often in India, or in traditional sense, it will be donation. It will be a free choice of the student to give whatever he can give and wants to give. This is very typical. And very typical also you will find that the teacher will not want to know who is giving what. So that there will be some rule that whenever you want to give some money, to the teacher or the ashram or whatever, that you give it without the teacher knowing about it. So you give it to his help maybe, or his wife or something, somebody else, so that he does not know about it, and he treats everybody in equal way and shares freely with everybody. So that is precisely the problem when people start making a business out of it. Then the sharing is not freely done. Then, okay, 50 euro you get this much. You want more, you need to pay more. This is not a free system. The teacher has a tendency, if he wants to survive also, to become quite greedy with his understanding. Not really helping people. As long as they still need his help or her help, then they still need to come and pay. So, if you are making a business out of it, it's not a very good idea to make your students very wise, very happy, and very enlightened, because then they no longer need you and they no longer come. If you are a true teacher, then if you want to have any kind of objective, then your best objective is that the people who have been coming to you never need to come back. That is what a true teacher is about. So there is some difference there. And it is very much repeated in many ancient texts that only this kind of selfless teaching, which is karma yoga, is powerful. Other teaching is seen as not powerful, not very powerful, not being able to really guide you into change. Only when it is selfless, then the truth can be heard. As long as the relationship between student and teacher is like a business relationship, where the student is a client who pays something to get something, then he cannot really get any truth. Truth does not fall into that kind of category. You cannot really, put that in this kind of game. Information, yes, that is possible. But truth, no. So, originally the word guru means the one who leads you from darkness to light. Okay, this is a little bit like an extreme way to see the role of the teacher, but this is the ancient way to see it. Nowadays the word guru is used in so many ways. You can have a math guru or a dance guru or any kind of guru. So this word has become more commonplace. But originally the guru was the one who leads you from darkness to light. And then very often the question will come, do we actually need a guru? Very often this question comes to us. Can't we do it without? Can't we find out ourselves? So, you can. But why make it difficult? There's a lot to learn in this game. I mean, of course, essentially there is really not a lot to learn. There's only one thing to learn, and that's that there is no problem. If you can understand that from the first class, then you don't really need anybody anymore. Then you have no more problem, so then you have no more need. But the problem is that most people can easily understand that there is no problem, but 5 minutes later again they feel there is a problem. So, and then it's more easy to learn whatever you can learn from somebody and then move forward on your own. Anyhow, that is the most important thing, that you do the practice and have your own experiences and from there get your own understanding and really feel that there is no problem. To understand that there is no problem is the first tiny step. To feel that there is no problem is the last and all important step that nobody can teach you. That you have to find on your own. But to go there, to go in that direction, to get closer to that, to get some of the experience that the teacher himself has had, and that so many teachers before him or her have had, is very valuable. And I have seen that so many times in my own practice, that whenever I try to do something on my own, maybe just getting a little bit of information from a book or something, and then trying on my own, that for a very long time I was struggling and not getting anywhere. And then I would ask the teacher, and the teacher would say, only do it like this, little bit different, and then it will work, and then you try that, and then it works. Why is that? Because he has done it. He has the practice, and if you have the practice, then you have the answers. So in that way, it is really quite cool, let's say, to have a teacher who gives you whatever he has, and then you can move forward on your own. There's no need to start on your own from the beginning. Some people, let's say, have done that. I mean, like, some people without any real teacher have reached some heights, But then it is said, well, maybe they had this teaching in past life. So, whatever you feel, this is your own feeling, doesn't matter. In any case, the one who wants to ask, do I need a teacher or not, is the one who is creating all the problems anyhow. It is the ego. For the ego, it's really not so easy to accept this student-teacher relationship. I had many problems with that, personally, because, at some time maybe you don't feel very good, and then you're more likely to, be a student. But then at other times, you're feeling a little better, a little stronger, you feel you understand, and then you feel you don't no longer need to listen. So this is natural, but it's good to understand that this is all not needed. The teacher is nobody special. If you take away the teaching from the teacher, then the teacher is just a normal person. It is only the teaching which makes the teacher special. And that is what he wants to give to you. So, what's the problem? And if it is a good teacher, then he will understand this very well, and surrendering to his teachings is not going to cause you any problem. Of course, if you surrender to a guy or a lady with a very big ego and with a personal agenda, then you may have a problem. So to be a little bit critical in the beginning is definitely advisable, but at some point you need to surrender. And, well, surrender can take many forms. Sometimes, you touch the feet of the Guru, or you do some things which are not unimportant for yourself to kind of make it official that you respect this person as your teacher. But the main thing is that you start really listening. This is very hard. Jesus, he said, let those with 2 ears listen. Everybody has 2 ears usually, So what he's saying is it's not because you have ears that you are listening. Most of the time, when the teacher is talking, we are also talking in our mind. Whatever he is saying, we are questioning. And during the class, this is not such a very productive attitude. After the class, it is very good attitude. After the class, whatever you have learned, try to remember, try to think about it, look at it from your own life, look at it from your own perspective, and decide for yourself what you feel is real or not real or whatever. That is very important. But during the class, it's really important to try to be silent inside and not question. And why is that? Well, quite simple. The absolute truth cannot be told. Not because the teacher doesn't want to tell it, but simply you cannot put it in words. The absolute truth is entirely beyond words. So whatever the teacher is teaching, anyhow, is only relative truth. It may be a very good teaching, but always you can question it. There's nothing special. Whatever I say or any teacher say, whatever the best teacher says, somebody can question it. Somebody can say, yes, but what if? It's always possible because everything that can be said is relative. Only has truth up to a certain point, and then if you look at it from another perspective, then some other truths also will be there, and somehow in your life you have to find some balance between all these things. The only absolute truth that is there cannot be said, cannot be questioned. How will you question the self? This is very difficult. But okay, we're not talking about the self now. But anyhow, so to understand that the teacher is just a guy or a girl, playing a certain role for a certain amount of time during the class, and that this means also that you are taking the role of the student who needs to listen and try not to question. Try not to reason, but really fully put your attention there and listen. This is the best way, because as I said, it's not about information. It's about really feeling it, is really sensing it. That can only happen if you put your whole heart into it. That cannot happen if you are just listening, but at the same time, talking to yourself. It's not going to work, and I know it's not easy. but you can try. In a way, the true teacher is the self. It is the self, the pure consciousness inside each of everyone, from which all understanding comes, and which is the only thing really that needs to be understood. So, that is the true Guru. In this way, you can say we have the inner Guru, and then we also have the outer Guru. And all that the outer Guru is doing is pushing you towards the inner Guru. That is where the real teaching happens. So the teacher really is nobody special. In that way, there is a very famous mantra, you could say, about the Guru that explains it even further. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. This means the Guru is Brahma, the creator. The Guru is Vishnu, the one who keeps everything in order. And the Guru is Maheshwara, Shiva, the destroyer. The Guru is Parabrahman. Parabrahman is the self. That is the Guru whom I am honoring. And then it goes on by saying, Janamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. This means that the meditation is on the image of the Guru. The mantra are the words of the Guru. The puja or ritual is at the feet of the Guru. And the moksha, the liberation, is the blessing of the Guru. Now, you can see this in many different ways. This is a little bit like old school. But what I was saying before about the attitude of the student during the class is also very much described here. You should look at the Guru. He should be your meditation. The moment that he is teaching, you should focus on him. Whatever he is saying should be your mantra, which means the only thing you can do is repeat whatever he is saying. And definitely listen to it. Your feeling should be towards him. That means your puja should be towards him. And then the blessing can come. The blessing which is the true understanding, not just the information. Now I'm saying this is old school. We Westerners, we are very proud of being very free in our own man or woman. So we don't like really this kind of nonsense very much. And we had all these problems with sects and with fake gurus, and so I know about that also, obviously. So I tell you, don't surrender to just anybody. But if you feel the Guru is truthful and helpful, then definitely you need to try to surrender. You need to try to fully focus, during the time at least that you have with the teacher. Then afterwards, again, you are free to make up your own mind, to think your own thoughts, have your own life, and whatever. In a way, the teacher is like an example in itself. The self is a very abstract thing. It's like an idea also. Difficult to explain. Like for very young children, the character A is very difficult to explain. So there then the teacher says A from apple. And then they learn the apple and the A is next to it, and that way they can learn this abstract A. So in a similar way, the teacher is like the form through which the self can be recognized. Because, well, if he is a good teacher, he should be relatively close to the self. As I said, he is nobody special. No? But still, somehow the divine can be more easily seen through him or her. And in that way, whatever he is saying is not so important. What is important is the peace that he has, the joy that he has. All those things that we associated with the divine, those are the things that are important in a teacher, and that is how the teacher teaches. The teacher teaches by example. by his way of acting, by his way of talking, by his way of being, by his way of loving, and all these things. That is the true teaching. And the true teaching also is in his silence. And there have been many teachers in India who were not saying anything at all, who were only teaching through silence, and they had many students, and these students were just with the teacher, listening to the silence and being very happy about it. And afterwards, many of these students became very famous teachers themselves. So somehow or other this works. So this is really the true teaching. But it depends. I mean, every teacher has his own way, is free to choose his own way. And so very often also the teacher will teach by giving the student certain exercises, certain tasks. This is very important. Like a lot of information you can get out of a book, but what you get with the teacher is a more personal approach. Because not everybody needs to do mantra meditation, not everybody needs to do pranayama. I mean, if you would be practicing everything that I'm teaching, then you would really have no more time in the day to breathe, because there's so many things that you could do. So the question is then, what should I do? But actually there, very often the teacher can more easily see than you can yourself what would be good for you to do. And in that way, a personal contact with the teacher, talking about yourself and then trying out whatever the teacher is advising you to do is a very important part of the teachings. And of course this also can take many forms, like, I don't know, maybe you've heard the story of Milarepa. It's a Buddhist story where the teacher told him to move a mountain, rock by rock. And then when, after a very long time, this was done, then he told him to move it back where it came from. So this was a kind of exercise for him that he thought he needed. And this can also be a little bit like, you could say, a test. I mean, there are so many different ways. Some teacher, he can have hundreds of students, thousands of students, and in that way be very important to all these students. That is quite possible. And some other teacher will say, I will only take one student. Maybe now and then I give a talk, and some people come. But that's not really, the true work. The real work is with one student. And so in that way, many different kinds of relationships between students and teachers are there. And both the teachers and the students are free to choose how they want to do it. Like in this very, you could say, old school kind of relationship, then at some point the student would completely surrender his life to the Guru. And he would tell the Guru, okay, whatever you want me to do, for however much time you want me to do it, I will do it. Whatever is my problem in finding enlightenment, I leave it all up to you. I surrender it all up to you. This is actually not a bad idea, because then you also don't have this problem anymore. Then it's the Guru's problem to get you, towards enlightenment, to, make you more happy, to make you more relaxed, this is his problem. And so in that way there are many, many different ways, and nobody should tell you that in a Guru-student relationship it should only be like this, or it should only be like that. That's nonsense. That is first of all for the Guru to decide how he wants to do it, what he wants to do, and then it's for the student to see if he wants to accept it. And then it is for the teacher again to see if he wants to accept the student. So in that way some testing then can be there. But quite definitely if somebody comes to you and says, oh, I surrender my problem to you, then you have to know if you want to do that or not. Most people will feel they already have enough problems of their own. They don't want other people's problems also. So it's quite something to do.